The tabletop takeaway.
Game mechanics on display.
Three designers share the stage.
Pick a genre and we'll play.
The tabletop takeaway.
Welcome back to the Tabletop Takeaway. I'm Ananda Gunaratna.
I'm Charlie McCarran.
And I'm Trevor Muller-Hagel.
And today we are going to be talking about Dungeon World. Dungeon World is another RPG, which makes sense since we're doing our tabletop role-playing game series.
Yep. Episode number 2.
Yes, and Dungeon World aesthetically looks a lot like Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, I think the aesthetic of the game was based on Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, even some of the numbers for the stats are basically the same.
Highly similar, yeah.
But the system that's used by the game is quite different. So essentially, I guess there are a couple of things probably to talk about with how the system works. A large part of the game revolves around the concept of moves, which are fictionally triggered. And what that means is that the players do not need to say like, oh, I'm taking this action, I'm taking this action, I'm using this. The players just say what their characters do. And at some point, they will trigger a move. So to give you an example, the hack and slash move is triggered when you attack an enemy in melee. So if you're a player and you say, okay, I'm going to take my sword and I'm going to stab that goblin, that would trigger a hack and slash. And there's just a bunch of these moves, and different character archetypes have different moves associated with them. And what the moves do effectively is, I guess they sort of make concrete or make... They sort of restrict what the GM can do in certain circumstances. Because, the GM can normally... Well, in theory, the GM can do whatever. We can talk about the GM in Dungeon World specifically, because it's the GM can't actually do whatever. But the moves restrict how the DM can react. So, like, if you do a hack and slash, basically on a 10+, you roll your damage to the enemy and avoid their attack. Oh, sorry. The way that this works is when you do move, sometimes you roll 2d6 and you add your relevant stats, so like charisma or strength or whatever. And there's 3 ranges that are important. If it's a 1 through 6 that you roll on 2d6, then that's a miss, which means you get to mark experience, which helps you level up, but also something bad happens. If you get a 7 through 9, that's a partial success. So you sort of succeed at what you're trying to do, but there's a complication. And if you get a 10 or higher, it's just a full success. And the 7 or 9 is sort of like a yes, but. Mm-hmm. And the 6 or lower is sort of like a no, and, essentially. Mm-hmm. So the moves are a big part of it. On the GM side, on the player side, you basically just describe what your characters are doing. So it's... I think it's quite easy as a player. I guess I was the GM, so I don't know for sure, but...
I think it was easy, but it did take a little maneuvering. Like, sometimes I would be trying to do the story element, and I tried to hint at it for you, but maybe you weren't catching which thing I was actually referring to. So then I would maybe have to be more explicit. Like,
sure.
Actually, I want to do this. But I liked that it was a little more freeform.
Yes. And so from the perspective of the game master has a specifically defined agenda, which consists of 3 parts. You want to be a fan of the players. Let me see if I can remember this off the top of my head. You're trying to be a fan of the players. You're trying to... be a fan of the characters, portray a fantastic world, and fill the players' lives with adventure. I think that's it off the top of my head. I have it written down somewhere, but I'm not sure where. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the GM has an agenda to fulfill, and the GM has actually moves that they're supposed to use to fulfill that agenda whenever the players are looking to them to see what happens.
Sure.
So,
I was feeling that when you would say, like, well, describe what this, like, we'd say, I'm going to try to attack this cow.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Just listen back to our previous episodes to learn the whole tale of what we did during this adventure. But then you'd say, like, well, what exactly are you doing? Are you, like, doing a...
Are you trying to hurt it? Are you trying to stun it?
Well,
Yep.
that actually leads to another part of how Dungeon World tells its GMs to act, which is that you're supposed to try to ask players questions and then use the answers. So, like, you know, when have you encountered this before? Or what does this feel like to you? Or, you know, do you remember when such and such happened? So the GM is basically inviting the players to participate in building the world by asking them very specific questions, which I think is pretty great.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot you can learn just by looking at how Dungeon World tells players to treat, or tells the GM to treat the players. And, like, you can learn a lot that's applicable to other RPGs.
Oh, yeah.
Just by looking at that.
Yeah, and I noticed, too, that the DM has a lot more mechanics that they can also engage with versus versus D&D, where the entire world, the entire story, everything is up to the DM to tell and give the players a good experience. And, you know, obviously the players react to what the DM gives them, but in Dungeon World, it feels much more collaborative, and you're actually, like, working on a story together, and what happens then?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, then we need to figure out what we're going to do next. Are we going to try and go to the dragon? Are we going to go off and find another site or something that I can do a ritual at, you know?
Mm-hmm. And was that, so, like, I was imagining maybe you had a plot for us, but you were kind of just winging it.
No, okay, so I don't have a plot. I guess the closest thing I'd have to a plot is a list of fronts. Fronts are basically like a list of bad things that will happen if the players don't intervene. So to give you some examples, I guess mild spoilers here, but I have, for example, let's see, Dormian's political machinations. So this is sort of a front that's based around Dormian Silverforge, who in our episode was trying to burn down parts of the forest to devalue the land so he could sell it and get rid of his obligations.
Yeah.
And as part of the fronts, I have a list of grim portents that happen if the players don't intervene. So, grim portent, Dormian plans to burn sections of the forest to devalue the land. Portent 2, his plot is exposed through stolen documents. Part 3, he accelerates his schemes to liquidate surface holdings. Part 4, he becomes increasingly desperate. So, as we go through the story, there are times when, due to a bad player roll or due to people looking to me to see what happens, I will advance a front by moving to the next portent.
Okay.
Interesting.
And in that play, we didn't actually even get to Dormian, but I guess you just prepare for everything and then see what...
Yeah. I mean, basically, preparing basically just means coming up with what will happen in the absence of the player's interference. And if the players engage with that threat, then those don't come to pass. And if they don't engage with the threat, I just advance the front, and bad things happen more and more. Like, in the session that we played, again, spoilers, so there were a couple of portents going on. One of them was the bounty hunters, because before that we killed a bunch of guards, and so the law enforcement, the dwarven law enforcement, put out bounties on the players' heads, and so I had a list of portents relating to. Oh yes, it's right here. So. Surviving guards spread word of the party's crimes. That happened. Bounties are placed on the party members' heads. That happened. Professional bounty hunters take up the chase. That happened. So in this case, you encountered the bounty hunters moving through the forest. Had you not done that, they might have, for example, arrived at the town and started looking for you there.
Kind of like a way to make sure some of the elements get in, regardless of what path you take.
I mean, it's basically a bunch of things that are happening in the background that the players aren't 100% aware of, but then that become relevant at some point during the story.
And you use their uncertainty of what they're doing as a way to kind of advance your agenda. You're not your agenda, but the different storylines that are happening.
It gives me things I can draw on to fill the players' lives with adventure.
Sure, yeah.
And sometimes we needed it, because sometimes we were looking at each other like, okay, where should we go now?
Yes.
And sometimes you start the fire that you were looking to prevent.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, Dungeon World
That's
addresses that
life.
specifically. When the players look to the GM to see what happens, the GM is supposed to make a move.
Yeah.
And a very easy move to make is advance a front.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's interesting. I really like that. And it reminded me for Dungeon World, they're still called playbooks, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So I really like this concept because you start with kind of basic abilities, basic moves that kind of detail out how your character is unique from everyone else, and then you have these advanced moves that you can learn when you level up. And the leveling up system is just so much more streamlined and so much more simplified, but also gives you a strong sense of power as you unlock the new, stronger abilities. I probably wouldn't play 60 games of a campaign of Dungeon World, but it's not really set up to be one campaign for 60 games.
Yeah, no, it's not this sort of thing where you would play the same character for years, probably. I mean, I guess you could maybe, but...
Right. It's really about the narrative, really about telling the story.
The characters, I think, cap out at like level 10.
Sure, that makes sense.
Beyond that, they're just too absurdly powerful for it to make sense.
Which is also kind of true for D&D in some ways, and in some campaigns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that because, if we max out all their stats and everything gets easier, does the GM just balance it out?
No, you have to wrap up the campaign.
Oh,
it's
okay.
not. Yeah, I mean, because once you start rolling like all 10s and 11s, then it's.
Well, and some of us did that anyway, just because they get really lucky sometimes, and then really unlucky other times.
Yeah. Yeah. But, like you said, it's not designed for very long campaigns like that. And I think it makes it really easy to jump into a story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you have people that are going to be in and out of a game, I think this would be a much better choice than D&D.
Well, the power level of moves is also interesting because Dungeon World's moves in general, I think, are a lot more powerful than D&D is, the abilities that it gives to its characters.
Oh, yeah.
Dungeon World is not afraid to give players abilities that almost warp reality.
I mean, yeah, because I was a spellcaster, and I had Ritual that basically let me do almost anything I wanted, but at whatever cost the GM determined for that ritual.
Right, yeah.
And, this is really interesting, being able to do that, and, okay, well, I want to, make all of this happen.
And you can do that.
It felt like, wow, this could change the course of the whole story if you can actually make our village invincible from fire, which was our main plot point. That we had to save the forest.
The original idea was to hatch the dragons from the eggs, which was okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
But then oh no, what if we just fireproofed the place?
Yeah.
So then the fire couldn't touch it. Then obviously if winter comes and they chop down the trees, then the trees won't burn.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I had that in my mind when I was saying it. I'm like, well, this is what he's saying.
Yeah. So how would the campaign start with character creation in this if you didn't already have characters like we had?
Yeah, so what you would do at the start of the campaign is each player would choose a playbook, and there are some specific setup instructions which mostly involve checking boxes and making choices. For example, a character might have a choice between two different moves, and you pick one. You have a choice between 2 or 3 different fantasy races, and you pick one, and that gives you a little bonus. I mean, in this case, I made those choices for you because I was converting it. But instead of being a human ? You could be a gnome or something, and that would give you a different ability so that you can sort of customize your class. And you'd also choose your starting equipment. You'd choose your alignment. You would get to assign stats however you like. Yeah. It gives you 6 numbers that you can assign to your stats.
Oh, cool.
In whatever way. You can see it's printed right there above your stats in tiny letters.
Oh, yeah.
That's setup instructions there. So, but yes, setting up this game is very simple, I think, compared to Dungeons and Dragons because you just check a bunch of boxes.
And you're ready to go. Yeah, it really does emphasize kind of your character's individuality as well. And a lot of D&D, everything follows the same mechanics and the same system. So, a monster attacks you, they roll a d20, they add the weapon die, and, if you had that weapon, you'd roll the same die. Everything's very, egalitarian between the players and NPCs and monsters. Where in this, it's very much like you are interacting with these mechanics, but those are actually going to be very different from what the GM is interacting with.
That's right.
And how they're dealing damage.
Yes, the GM's mechanics do not work quite the same way as the players.
Which I think is very good.
Like, to give you an example, in combat, and maybe we should talk about combat too, because I think that's another place where this differs a lot from D&D. But in combat, hack and slash, if you have a partial success, your opponent gets to deal their damage to you. But it's not like you have a turn and the monsters have a turn.
Right.
It's like, okay, you're the player, you're doing something, you're deciding to do hack and slash. Okay, you got a partial success, that means the monster attacks you back. The other case in which the monster attacks you back is if the GM foreshadows that the monster is going to do something and the player doesn't react. There's a concept, the GM has soft moves and hard moves. And the difference between them is basically soft moves give the player a chance to react. It's sort of foreshadowing a threat and asking the player what they want to do about it.
Yeah.
Whereas hard moves are executing on the threat. So the GM is supposed to let players know what's going to happen and then see what the players do. And then if the players don't adequately address the threat, then you follow through on it. But
So, yeah, in terms of the dice rolling, I was curious because like 10 plus is a success.
yes.
7 to 9 is like
Partial.
kind of
Yes,
partial,
but-
or maybe there's bad stuff. And below that is just like fail, nothing happens, right?
Well,
Or
no.
sometimes bad things.
No. So
Okay.
on a miss, the GM is supposed to make a soft or a hard move, often a hard move.
Gotcha.
You can make a soft move too, but it's supposed to be something that complicates things. Something bad for the players.
I think my takeaway is related to that system, and in that and it could be partially the custom moves you made for us. I thought were pretty interesting, but the idea that the 7 to 9, there's times when I actually wanted that to happen.
Yeah.
Because of story reasons, it sounded interesting.
You wanted the complication.
Yeah, or the miss like.
I want more misses
my
for
healing,
experience.
My healing one, for example.
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of like, when I was trying to heal the cow, I was thinking like, if I got 7 to 9, the disease would be transferred to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, does that give me the power to like warp around?
Or does that
like,
just make you addicted to flowers?
addicted to flowers? Either way, that sounds like a really funny story. So I was definitely curious to see if that would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or when I was trying to convince the villagers.
Yeah.
And I rolled so poorly that instead they were going to attack me. I was like waiting to see if that would happen. But yeah.
They didn't attack
just,
you, but
They just got mad at me.
yeah.
Yeah. Not so much of a hero, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. That's mean.
Yeah. What do you guys have for takeaways?
I think my takeaway, I mean, I'm a big fan of Dungeon World. I think it's pretty great. I think it gives a lot of good advice for GMs. And I think my takeaway is maybe one of the principles of GMing Dungeon World, which I think is broadly applicable to other systems, especially systems with a GM, which is that you shouldn't be afraid to ask your players to make contributions to the world.
Sure.
It's asking a player a question and then basically ask players questions and use their responses, I think is a great principle for GMing anything.
Yeah.
Because it's easier for you. You don't have to come up with as much stuff.
Yep.
And it's fun for the players. It gives them some more authority over the world that they otherwise don't get. So I think my takeaway is that in any system with a GM, just be willing to ask people questions and use what they say.
Yeah.
I like that feeling as a player because, yeah, I do want to have more of an impact on where the story's headed too, not just like, oh, what I do
Just
in this
reacting
story.
to things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's probably a little weird for people too. Like I can tell you probably have an idea of where you want to go based on like some of the prep work. So sometimes I'm like, ooh, am I pushing it in the direction he didn't really want to go? But then you can respond and...
You're not really supposed to... In Dungeon World, you're supposed to play to see what happens, which is why the prep work is just a bunch of fronts.
Sure.
So railroading is not something GMs are supposed to do in Dungeon World.
Sure.
So, I mean, I have a lot of takeaways from the system. Powered by the Apocalypse is great because, it's very versatile, and they have, I think, like a dozen worlds for
And
it.
for the benefit
Yeah,
of
did
the
we
listeners,
mention that
Yeah.
Powered by the
again?
Apocalypse is sort of a superset of
Yeah.
which Dungeon World is one particular subset.
Yep.
So Powered by the Apocalypse, basically like the dice rolling method and the moves.
The
thing?
playbooks, how everything kind of works together, all
Okay.
that kind of core of the game is Powered by the Apocalypse, and then Dungeon World comes in and dusts the D&D flavoring over everything, and then maybe modifies some of the things to fit it more succinctly, like having spells and things like that. Because I think I listened to a podcast of my Bim Bam folks doing their Monster of the Week series, which is Powered by the Apocalypse as well. And they had a spellcaster in it, but in Monster of the Week, it behaved very differently than spellcasters do in Dungeon World.
Oh.
Even though it's the
How
same
so?
technical system. They were much more just move-based instead of having, like, a list of spells that they could cast and recover.
The spells are definitely to give it that Dungeons and Dragons flavor.
Yep. I think one of my lead takeaways is actually going to be the shift from the D20 to the 2D6. It's a big benefit to the game like this, or to almost any RPG, in my opinion, because it adds more importance to increasing your stats, which is such a hard thing to do in D&D already. Like, go 4 levels and you can either get a feat or get a stat increase, and it's like, well, 4 levels, that's, maybe 15 sessions sometimes, or 20 sessions, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so I've got to wait like a half a year in real time to
Yeah.
get this stat boost. And then it does a 5%
And it's still,
increase
and
to your rolls.
1 to 20, just still
Yeah.
complete randomness.
Versus 2d6, and a 7
probability.
being you succeed, but getting a +1 is a huge benefit to that. And then they also, give you a +1 bonus to your stat every level, or to a stat. And obviously not every stat increase gives you the additional modifier bonus. But you feel like you're actually doing something, and you feel like you're actually working towards something, which is great.
Yeah.
But the other piece is really just the playbooks and having this like very custom, unique character. However, I am the kind of person that loves to multi-class, so I'd probably almost always try to make my own playbook.
There's rules for that. There's
there really?
there's compendium classes.
Ooh.
Where there are certain let's say I don't remember the exact rules for compendium classes, but I think it's something to the effect of certain there are certain moves, or there are certain events that can unlock other
I love that.
other classes. Like, for example, there might be a compendium class where there's something that unlocks more of your dragon, here it's dragon
the
heritage.
Dragon warrior.
Yeah,
sweet.
and so then basically you would get a bunch of additional moves that you could choose to take on level up that would relate more strongly to your dragon heritage.
Yeah. Anytime you
my-
have a prestige class or anything like that.
Yeah.
Those are very easy to implement in Dungeon World.
Right, yeah. And so I think like this makes a much cleaner system for it. D&D has a lot of multi-classing in it, but to me it's not very intuitive, and it also makes your character weaker typically.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, why would I do that if I'm going to get weaker? And back in the day in 3.0, they had prestige classes where you could like meet requirements, and then you could like get to this new class that was completely different from all the other base classes. They were stronger, had cooler things, but yeah, I think it's a great way to go about it, is having these moves, starter moves,
Yeah.
advanced moves.
Oh, something that I mentioned earlier, but I didn't go into that much, is combat in Dungeon World.
Yeah.
What I really like about combat is that, unlike D&D, combat is not treated differently from the rest of the game.
Yeah.
It works exactly the same way as everything else.
No rolling for initiative.
Yeah, there's no initiative. There's not. I feel like there's so many mechanics in D&D that are just for combat. And in Dungeon World, combat is just other moves. Like hack
Right.
and slash is the same as any other move.
Right.
Yeah. I like that.
And
Same as searching for, buried treasure. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I can attack something, or I can look for something, or I
Right.
can...
yeah, it's narrative first. So
Yeah.
it's like, here's the combat situation. What do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm more inclined to do things that aren't just like slashing.
Right.
Because that is the feel I get from some RPGs where it's like, well, this is an enemy, so you have to kill this to get past it.
Right.
Whereas I like the idea that the world is a little more like we can actually save this cow. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
we have to subdue it, but
I almost cast Fireball on it.
Yeah, we were
was
tempted.
close.
That would put us down a dark path,
Yeah.
which we were already on because we
A little bit.
Well,
Spoiler. Well, they should have listened to
They-
that.
they-
Yeah, if you haven't
But-
listened to it, that's
yeah, what do
fine.
you can go
do?
back and listen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Any last thoughts though?
I think Dungeon World is a fantastic system, and I would always play it over D&D.
I think Dungeon World is a fantastic system, and I would play it over D&D if I was going to play less than 15 sessions.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the same characters.
Yeah.
With the same characters.
Yeah. I enjoyed it too, for sure. And I'm very excited also to get into our final chapter of this RPG series next time when you listen to our bonus episodes and continuing on our story with Dread.
Hey, thanks for listening to The Tabletop Takeaway. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. So please tell your friends and visit our website at thetabletoptakeaway.com, where you can suggest games and mechanics for us to cover next on the show.